Well, what if we've built an entire system of superfast broadband, but the darn thing is worth less than we paid for it? Yep, we're talking about the National Broadband Network, the NBN, which is a byword for disappointment as consumers complain that it's not the future-proof, high-speed network they were promised. Well, Labor is now proposing that if they win government, they are open to writing down the value of the NBN, which currently sits at about $50 billion, a move which would mean, apparently, a hit to the federal budget. Mike Quigley, who was the head of the NBN when Labor was last in government, says this is inevitable, that the costs don't square with the earnings potential. He says cost reductions in fibre to the premises technology mean that Labor's original proposal may have ended up cheaper than the current plan. For more on this, we're joined by contributing editor of politics at The Monthly, Paddy Manning.
Hi, Alan.
What did you do to end up on the NBN beat? You must have been a very bad man at some point. Let me go from the beginning. What have we ended up with the NBN? How problematic has it become?
I think it's a tragedy because there was a plan that might have, cost more than Labor said it would, and it might have taken a bit longer than they said it would, but it would have delivered a scalable, super fast broadband network, which the country clearly needs. And so what we've got now is the prospect of a $20 billion write-down.
$20 billion.
That's what the market expects will be necessary. And that's a hit straight to taxpayers. That's our money. And now, sorry, the government doesn't accept this yet. But what we're seeing is the prospect of a change of government at the next election means that it might be what's politically unacceptable for the coalition to do, which is write down the value of this network. It may be possible for Labor to do it.
OK, so this is like saying I bought a house for $50 billion, but now it's only worth $30 billion and I'm just going to write off the loss. Is that right, in taxpayer terms?
Well, the valuation is based on the earning potential of the network. The problem at the moment is that the earning potential is being restricted partly by the fact that the NBN has to charge high wholesale prices onto telcos like Telstra and others, CBG and whatever, Optus, so that it gets its money back and it can stay off the government's books. So the reason why we don't see the valuation of Telstra impacting on the federal budget every year is because it's off the balance sheet.
Right. Is this, though, Telstra wanting this or Labor saying they're going to do it?
It's a bit of both, because Telstra's in a world of pain, and so are other. The NBN is depressing the earnings of telcos across the board because it's charging so much for broadband access because it's trying to keep up its profitability.
It's trying to make money on the $50 billion, but rather than the $30 billion. I want to go to Sulet. What have we ended up with? I mean, Malcolm Turnbull's compromise NBN was supposed to be cheaper, it was supposed to be just as effective, and it was supposed to be done a whole heap quicker. What have we ended up with?
Yeah, none of those things, I think, is the answer. So we see that more than 70% of the costs of providing the NBN service, is wholesale pricing. All of the major providers of it, whether it's Telstra or Optus, have said, hey, we actually can't, make a reasonable profit out of this. We've seen that already the mobile phone companies are basically eating some of this lunch, trying to build alternative routes, and people are turning to that in the alternative. So that's not ideal. And by the way, I don't think you can actually get a write-down without an auditor's report that recommends it. So that would, I think, have to be a precursor to it. It's great that...
What are consumers' experiences of Turnbull's NBN?
I think that people are very unhappy. I mean, at the end of the day, you have two political parties who are, kind of puppets barking at each other over this issue. But most Australians are just saying, actually, can I watch my Netflix without it being interrupted every 5 minutes? Can I actually have a telephone call over data that doesn't drop out 5 times in the middle of an hour conversation? That is what they're frustrated with. And they would like to just see someone in Canberra who would say, right. We are going to fix this problem. Now, 50, 100 years ago, there wasn't a problem in Australia with deciding we are going to have universal electricity supply. We are going to have universal water for everyone. I don't see why the country shouldn't decide that it is going to invest in that for everyone, because it's the future of our economy. It's the future of our connectivity. It's a big continent. We need to be able to talk to each other.
Has that been part of the problem, that it was expected to pay for itself, that it was not envisaged as a rail network, a road network, something that taxpayers were going to pay for and the government was going to own?
It's a bit like the standard gauge railway thing with the states all built. You know, what we've got now is a balkanised NBN, which we've got 3 planks. You've got the fibre to the node, the copper-based. You've got the HFC, which is still not rolled out, which is the pay TV cables. And you've got the fibre that Labor had rolled out. So what is it fit for purpose? It depends on your expectation of growth in demand for net use, but that's related to the price. And the problem is at the moment that the prices are too high for what people are willing to pay. So Communications Minister, Mitch Fifield will argue that there's no evidence that people want faster internet. Now, I think, because the very top tiers demand is low. The problem is that the top tiers are priced so high because the NBN has to charge these high wholesale prices, and then telcos are trying to make a little margin on the top. So I think it's a question of the pub test. Do we think that Australians want faster internet? I think they do. And do you think that demand is going to increase in the future? I think it is. And clearly what we've got is what Labor really has to confront, and the coalition would also have to confront if it got re-elected, is how much is it going to cost and how long will it take to get this network up to, say, the standard of New Zealand. That's what we need, a fibre rollout that New Zealand got.
You've held very senior positions as a CFO in companies. When you look at this, what do you make of it?
That we've wasted $20 billion of taxpayers' money. That's what it says to me. If that's considered right down, yes, there has to be a report that, in effect, values the infrastructure we have in place. But I would say to you, if you think about who your customers are, and if they're saying, we're not using it because it's a bit hopeless. I mean, we've just got the NBN letter in our household, and I asked my son, who is a computer geek sort of guy, and I said, well, do you think we should transition? He said, Mum, can you just wait as long as possible because it's hopeless. So if you think about what your customers are saying, they're saying actually it's not delivering what we expected it to deliver. When we have a look at the speeds it's delivering versus our neighbours, New Zealand, the whole of Asia, we're behind. We just talked about Townsville and lamenting what's going to happen to some of these towns that may lose their coal-fired station. Well, it would have been really helpful to have had a fantastic NBN because it enables actually businesses to invest in not a localised, from localised perspective, not just in the major capital cities, but in regional areas. We could actually have a lot of jobs in regional areas. So I lament a lost opportunity.
Are there any votes in Labor saying, well, we're just going to chuck good money after bad?
Yeah,
let's just keep throwing money at this problem.
Well, no, at the moment it's not fit for purpose.
My hip pocket is twitching at the suggestion.
National seats are up for grabs now. But Labor needs to not chuck good money after bad. They actually have to sort of try and wangle something into something that's crappy into something that's good. Because at the moment, it's not fit for purpose, but it's also not fit for sale. And you want your assets to be sellable at some point as a government. So they have to somehow pump in more money and make it decent. Because when the Country Women's Association is campaigning against the Nationals on the NBN, they're in trouble.
That's the key, because in the regionals, in the rural parts of our state in particular, the access and the speed is absolutely scandalous. It's third world. So this is impacting every child who's at any primary school and high school west of the Great Divide. It's a shambles.
Patty, you've written thousands of words on this. Can you fix it?
No, it's really hard to fix. It's actually really hard to fix because all of these nodes have been installed, so it's hard to upgrade the fibre to the node network. There's no clear pathway for that. There has been an attempt to migrate the fibre to the node rollout to a fibre to the curb, so that at least all you have to do is get a fibre connection from your house to the footpath, not to some, faraway, cabinet.
Would that fix it?
Well, that's 1 billion homes. So basically there's 5 billion on, these are very round numbers, don't hold me to them, but there's 5 billion on fibre to the node. There's 1 billion apparently on fibre to the curb.
So if you chuck another 6 billion... Oh, no, there's more. Go on.
There's 3 billion of us that are waiting for... because this is me living in Sydney, waiting for the HFC rollout to be either commenced or finished. There's been a long delay with that. And more costs associated with it.
This is a depressing end to the program.
It's a very hard... And we're still buying copper.
Tell me how much money?
We're still buying thousands. There's no cost.
Unlimited.
There's no cost that I'm aware of that puts a dollar figure on it.
You need a policy position first.
All right.
Before you can cost it.
All right, that is all we have time for. Thanks to our panel, to Catherine Greiner, Ming Long, Dee Madigan, Sue Dreyfus, and to our guest, Paddy Manning. Have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow.